I will enable the recording. So first, everything what will be online will be recorded. However, I should tell that most of lessons are already recorded. So most important in our course, just to have your motivation. And we started several years ago with this course, where we tried to apply more or less, how to say, totalitarian approach with curation of a course, and now we came to more democratic approach. So basically, we are not pressing anyone to learn any of lessons we have in the program, but you can choose your own path and almost order. However, I think the order I put the lesson in the program have some reason. So let's start maybe first with a small walk through the program of the course, and I will explain also the reason why everything is there and what is the learning targets of the course or every part of the course. So 1 second, I will share the screen now. So do you see my screen? All good? So first I will tell maybe a short story about myself. I started to do computer graphics in late 90s because of a dream. My friend bought a camera, just a regular high 8 camera, and we were dreaming to make a film on the Borges. So I read a scenario, screenplay, and after several trials to shoot something, we realized it will not work without the computer graphics. So, and then occasionally I came to my friend who was bought impressive computer on that time. It was Pentium 1996. And I seen the first computer 3D program which was actually TrueSpace. Quite fancy, strange product. Then, relatively fast, I joined the world of 3D graphics and started to try several different programs. I tried 3D Studio DOS, then I tried Lightwave, Softimage. Then I became a complete fan of Maya from the first version. And then, in some moment, one guy showed it to me Houdini, and I was completely impressed by the procedural workflow. That was 2001. Actually, that was a bit too late for this software because it was created on 1980 something, 85. But actually, it was a year where TouchDesigner came to the market. And starting from 2004, let's say, I started to really intensively use it in my own artist practice. I was working to that moment in German film production. I was a technical director for the most expensive movie in the history of German film production to that moment. And I was really fucked by Maya because that software was promoted as if it would be procedural. That was actually completely not the case. And the level of support we got, even with platinum support from LS Wavefront and Autodesk, was horrible. So at some moment I realized that for the cool production, proceduralism is a key. Then several years later, I escaped working in film production because I realized that it was not corresponding to my life targets somehow. And later I joined event business. I was in Moscow shortly to that time, and I started to work together with Sila Sveta, which was one of the first biggest companies in Russia for real-time stuff and video mapping and everything what belongs to that topic. And they were using TouchDesigner. So after I seen it, I realized it is so similar to Houdini that it will not make a big problem for me to jump into, and it was a moment, it was no tutorials, nothing. So I organized a short workshop about TouchDesigner in 2012, asking the guys from Syllabus to teach. And after 15 minutes of seeing that workshop, I completely got how to work in TouchDesigner and started my own artistic practice with that. And then a bit later, I started also to make first workshops, so I do it since, let's say, 12 years already. And since some moment I realized that TouchDesigner somehow hold in development in 3D. Most of artists who come to work in TouchDesigner mostly coming from the video production background, and that's why a lot of TouchDesigner art looks boring and similar, because people have no fucking idea about 3D graphics. And I decided to make a strong point of my tutorials and lessons in the field of 3D, because it's the key. TouchDesigner actually is on the first point is 3D program. Then also since 2001, let's say, Houdini and TouchDesigner went completely different ways. So they developed a lot in different directions, but they still have the same engine as the roots. So that's why they have a same concept, most of the same slang, concepts, ideas, structures. So you can basically save a lot of time learning these two programs, not as a separated programs, but as a same mind flow. I have to disable sound. So, and first I came to idea to make a workshop about Houdini and TouchDesigner simultaneously. It was because I was invited to the film studio in Wrocław, and guys there had old school motion control system, which was used by Zbigniew Rybczynski for his Oscar nominated movies in 80s. And they wanted really to make a workshop about both things together. So after I done it for the first time, it was I think 2015, I realized that it works amazingly, so people really get the idea. And since then I was dreaming to have an opportunity to start this course. And this opportunity actually first came during COVID, because everyone had a lot of time. So I started to make this workshop, and first I announced this course to be a half-year course. Then I realized that the amount of information I wanted to pack into it is much bigger. So currently what we have now is around 120 hours of lessons, and I would say the half of course is recorded live, half of course is recorded by me only sitting in my studio. So it's like quite clean, not too much of water or something, blah blah blah. And a lot of things I re-recorded, so we restructured the course since it was started quite several times, I think 3 or 4 times. I just analyzed it from students' feedback that if I order the lessons, it make more kind of dramaturgy to the course, so to more the storytelling. So that course is not only like gathering a bunch of small tutorials, it's really like a long story. And that story has like a typical Stanislavski piece, 3 parts. That parts are not obvious, but I still count it. So there is part number 1 is crash start, part number 2 is diving in 3D, and part number 3 is practical applications and conceptual topics about workflow. So basically I would tell how to touch. It's also kind of a bit wordplay, because we're using how incorrectly in English, and that is obvious because how is the first 3 letters from the name of Houdini or the name of Houdini Python package. So it's about a pipeline. And what is actually pipeline? Pipeline is how to optimize and compile several tools to one efficient workflow. So this course is about a technical workflow for artistic and any kind of graphic work. So basically, let's say if you really go through all the course, you will be like a commandos in computer graphics, because it's touching a lot of things coming from my film production experience, but also from my event experience, but also from my artistic experience. So it's like about everything. Okay, so what is the target of the level 101? The target of the level 101 is to bring you, doesn't matter from your basic level, if you have experience or not, even if you completely never open TouchDesigner, it will also work, or Houdini. The target of this level is to bring you the basic understanding of workflow, bring some practical and theoretical background, and make you able to work already. So basically, after module 101.2, you will be already able to do practical, commercial, and artistic work. So that's, let's say, every module is just 3 lessons. So let's say you will have 7 lessons and you will be already able to do stuff. In my early courses, I was always trying to put more complex topic in front, because I found that people will be not accept me as a professional teacher. And then I realized that that's the wrong idea, because people started to get fear. So I restructured that completely. Most complex topics come first later, after you will manage to make some results already and have kind of dopamine and motivation that you can do some cool stuff already until you come to the complex topics. So first we go with the first lesson and go through interface, but unlike a lot of TouchDesigner tutorials, the target of this course to build a ready project. So you will open Houdini, make a simple 3D scene, export it to TouchDesigner, render it, and learn how to output it to the beamers. So basically that's the full workflow with a completely simple project. Here we also touch some technical stuff about formats, about how to work with commercial license and non-commercial license. Then in lesson 2 and lesson 3, so first lesson is a bit outside, it's just a basic introduction. In lesson 3, you will go into topics of compositing. And if we start with idea that TouchDesigner is a 3D program like Houdini, then we should not forget that TouchDesigner, on the second point, is also real-time video compositor. So you can do most of compositing works like in Nuke, like in DaVinci Resolve, or whatever. And here we're going through the concept of compositing from 3D rendered data, video processing, chroma key, and until the topics of doing generative 2D textures, working with feedback loops, and etc. Then, after we already know how to make 3D stuff and how to compose it, logically, next step, what we want to animate, to make it alive. And that's why we're coming to the animation. And we make a basics for the understanding about 3 different approaches how to make animation. You can make generative animation, you can make keyframe animation, and you can make parametric animation, which is kind of in between generative and keyframe. So it's like controllable generative animation. And we do it both in Houdini and in TouchDesigner, because we have to keep a track about both worlds, both ways. So then second module is mostly concentrated on TouchDesigner, because before we come to the world of deep diving in 3D, we need to be happy. And in order to be happy, what we can do if we cannot really create yet some complex 3D graphic, we can play back movies. And in order to play back movies, we need to have some knowledge, because TouchDesigner is not Resolume and not Adobe Premiere, so it's not providing us so easy ways to play back stuff. But for that we can do quite complex event show systems. And that topic actually more or less corresponds to the course of creating a media server. But also here we touch some of topics about working with camera in 3D part, so like how to make a camera in TouchDesigner, how to animate a camera in. We continue to work with parametric animation here, and we learned how to make a custom media players. Then even we come to the topic how to record the user-generated interactive data and play it back. So it's basically about playing back something which should be synced to the time. Then logically, on that level, we will be not really professional if we cannot program something. Unfortunately or fortunately, but in our times, we need to be artists, but we also need to be a programmer. And that is not so scary because myself, for example, I never got math, programming, or physics in the school so deeply. I'm artist, so I never learned something technical. So it's all about just basic logic rules. If you can structure your mind, you can tell to computer to make something. Doesn't matter if you deal with Python, TouchDesigner, Houdini, or generative AI. Anyway, you need to somehow structure your mind. That is the most important thing. And here we dive into Python TouchDesigner in all possible aspects needed to continue that course. So then lesson 7 is much more deep dive into creating complex playback systems. And let's say after that part, you can do your own VJ applications, you can work as a show engineers, you can do music videos already because you know how to sync everything to time, how to control the complex timelines, and how to play back animation, how to compose, how to do effects. So that's a turning point. After that part, we start to learn geometrical concept, and that is the heart of the story because in both TouchDesigner and Houdini, geometry has different structure as in any other 3D program, and that makes them so powerful. So we learn basic idea, then we start to work with more practical examples and tools. So I just showing the screenshots from the lessons. So for example, this lesson, we just do a very simple basic setup. We do like line it basic head, export and render it in TouchDesigner. So here I will show the idea of geometrical attributes and how to work with them straightforward from Houdini to TouchDesigner. Then we go a bit into basic modeling with traditional ways of modeling and into rendering. So that was a level 101. Then second level, you come into second level if you follow all the lessons with all the knowledge I told and with basic and understanding how you can start to work with 3D in Houdini and TouchDesigner. So then we logically need to extend that knowledge. Basically, if you think about Houdini and TouchDesigner, both programs are their languages. Yeah, it's visual programming language. And what you need to learn a new language, you need to learn grammar, you need to learn words, and you need to learn some typical constructs which every language have. So in that moment we starting to learn different words or operators. First module of the second level is mostly oriented for understanding how to generatively create the arrays of geometry. Because our planet, our world contains a lot of objects, and every object, even if it's similar, it's unique. So we need to learn how to easily create complex filled 3D scenes using the strong points of CPU-based workflow and GPU-based workflow. So we learn here the iterative processing, copying geometry, varying copies, and also instancing and different procedural modeling techniques. So it's mostly based on abstract level, but you can apply it for also something more realistic. Then the third lesson is instancing. It's the most powerful technique for real time. However, we also will touch the usage of instancing in Houdini for non-real time. Then after we know a lot of different procedural techniques how to create complex geometries, we need actually to apply it somehow to the practical results. So the module 2 in the level 102 is about how to create a final 3D scene. So first lesson is creating landscapes and transferring the data from Houdini to TouchDesigner. Here we start to learn GLSL to make optimization in the rendering. Then we dive very deeply to, let's say, a bit above the basic level of working with material, because we learn the traditional workflow, how to decompose image to the render passes and compose it back, how to deal with the materials, and we touch a bit the substance designer, how to create generative textures. We touch the basics of GLSL, and we have 3 lessons or even 4 lessons how to make the different custom passes for rendering, how to make a reflection, Fresnel, custom depth level, refraction, fake, and how to compose using GLSL. That is not so complicated like to writing custom materials from scratch, because it will really need another level of mathematical and physical knowledge. But that's level what I explain here is kind of understandable by everyone, because we just take the standard TouchDesigner shader and extend it by several custom functions. Then we dive into Houdini and learn rendering and material workflow in Houdini, also including the new Karma renderer and Redshift. And last part of module 102 is about the dynamic simulation. So lesson 1 is about particles, both TouchDesigner and Houdini. Lesson 8 is about how to model. Okay, I have to explain. SOP Solver is a modeling operation which is time related. So it's like if you imagine procedural setup and you will try to make some person going onto snow and left steps inside of snow, it will not work, because procedural setup just work in the time. So after your character will left, it will be no steps left in the snow. In order to keep them, it should be time-dependent procedural setup. So SOP Solver is a special engine in Houdini which provides the possibility to make time-dependent modeling. And that is widely used to create a growing systems. So here we learned how to work with growing systems. Then last lesson 9 is a walk through different engines, how to make rigid body simulations, how to make hair simulation, how to work with smoke solvers, etc. And the last third level is currently it's a 5 parts. First part is very, very important. It's about the system architecture. So basically, let's say after level 102, you know everything, not maybe so deep if you go into some very specific course like making a film quality level smoke simulation for explosions, but you will have a completely good understanding of all tools needed to make different aspects of computer graphics. And then we need to come to the topic what you want to make with them. And first topic where we learned here how to automate and optimize your work. That is why we have the system architecture and assets there. Both Houdini and TouchDesigner provide different and partly similar ways to create reusable digital assets. It's like plugins, but you create these plugins yourself with visual programming instead of hardcore level programming with C++, like you would make it in other programs. So, and here we need to speak about bunch of quite complex but important things. That is, for example, model view controller paradigm, how to make modular setup, how to make components, how to synchronize and send data between TouchDesigner processes, so on the same machine or on remote machines, how to work with variables in order to make your setup more abstract, how to create TouchDesigner modules for Python, how to use assets you already created before in the course and build a proper TouchDesigner assets with interface. That is level lesson 1 here. Second lesson is about digital assets, and the digital assets in TouchDesigner are realized quite simple. So here we have just some topics about that. It's like a bit of introduction to digital assets, introduction to using of assets with TouchDesigner engine, and using OLIP library, how to set the privacy settings in TouchDesigner Pro version. Then we switch completely to Houdini because digital assets in Houdini is just another level. And also we start to work here with PDG, which is a procedural dependency graph in Houdini, or it's the way how you can create automated workflow for anything. So it's just like exploding your brain with the possibilities. And then last lesson in that part is about how to write your custom preset manager in TouchDesigner using the JSON and Python. So here we will build custom elements. We will work a bit more detailed about what we and how we can work with user interface at all, and how we can save and manage presets. Then lesson module 2 is about interactivity, and here we have two quite different topics. One is about to work with depth sensors. So we have concentration on Kinect, but basically all techniques explained here can be extended to any of depth sensors, because we speak about the point clouds, but also about the skeletons. I just will show some screenshots. And lesson 5 may be even more important, because if you understand that TouchDesigner based on 3D, and you will in some moment realize the amazing possibility that if you render it in real time in TouchDesigner, you can return the 3D data about any geometry. So basically, speaking on human language, you can make the 3D interfaces. And that is amazing possibility for making the interfaces or interactive installations. So, and here we research it quite deeply. Then module 3 is about data visualization and web integration for data visualization. So first time I touched to this topic was because it was a new TV production started, and they asked me, that was 2010 I think, or 2009 even. Unfortunately to that time I never seen TouchDesigner, so I realized that the full idea with Houdini. It was about like getting data about the stocks and visualizing them with animated template in Houdini. So I programmed everything on Python to that times. But now we have TouchDesigner, and here we do a stock exchange asset. That is the one lesson. And second lesson is how to create interactive world map. And that's I can even show with a video. So I was showing here the all possible aspects what we can get from this globe. So we can receive the data about the selected country, then ask some API about different types of information, biggest cities, amount of people living there. Also to ask the OpenStreetMap to the map with different scale levels. So it's quite practical template to making commercial work, basically. And where is my Notion? Here. Next lesson is about audiovisual. Here we dive to the sound synthesis and TouchDesigner and creation of different sound-related assets in TouchDesigner, like wave shapers, like sequencers, like strange sequencers, Euclidean sequencers. And then lesson 9 is about integration with Ableton and Bitwig. So I think I even don't have all up-to-date screenshots here, but here is even we have some basic lessons about the user interface of Ableton and Bitwig, and that is important because TouchDesigner still don't provide the good timeline interface. So for most of practical cases, me and a lot of my friends using Ableton or Bitwig for queuing and making the complex details in the installation or in performance. And last part is about integration with Unreal. I still finishing this lesson, so I cannot show everything what is there, but what we currently doing here is all possible ways how we can generate and export different type of animations and geometries from Houdini to TouchDesigner using Houdini engine or not using Houdini engine, and how we can control Unreal from Touch engine. So basically that's all about the structure of the course. So if you have questions, please write. Then what I want to tell, now we will have 2 weeks transition time. In 2 weeks, I think we will make, good question, in 2 weeks we will have another lesson, another stream, it's not lesson actually, where we will speak again more detailed about the schedules and our workflow about the curation, but basically after several streams we had before, and I have to tell now is the seventh stream of the course, or seventh group. We will more concentrate on results than on theory. So basically what is asked that you make your homework. So we have a bunch of homeworks written in the program, in the learning management system. And basically we check the final rendered movies, even if it's just the screen grab recording, so you can install OBS and record with it. And only if you have some technical question, we will open the projects and answer them, but basically more or less everything quite well explained in course itself, so I don't think you will have so much of questions, at least after some time. Good question by Philip, that on which part of the course we will say something about integration Houdini into TouchDesigner. Basically on the second lesson already. Fairly to say, there is no integration between TouchDesigner and Houdini at all. The TouchDesigner and Houdini support bunch of common formats for geometry and for chop data, for animation data. So basically, because geometrical format of Houdini and TouchDesigner can contain some additional metadata in comparison to geometry exported, let's say, from Blender or Maya or any other 3D program, you can intensively use this metadata. It's what is called groups and attributes. So for my own way, I typically, if I get external data from any other 3D program, first I process this data by Houdini to clean up, to structure it, and to make the attributes, which I can use in TouchDesigner. Because unfortunately in TouchDesigner is so relatively limited, so it's stuck on the level of 1998, and from I don't know reason, Derivative didn't find resources to develop it to modern level. So that's why combination of Houdini with TouchDesigner properly makes sense. And in the first lesson already, if you look into program, we make the first basic 3D scene in Houdini and learn how to export it and load that back into TouchDesigner. So basically we start straightforward from that workflow. And then logically, before we go to the explode your brain with SOPs, I do something sweet on the start so you can have your cool results and don't have a panic how complicated is it. After you got into logic and workflow, after 2 months, let's say, starting with SOPs will be not so complex for you already. So you will get the basic idea. Anyway, we have a lesson in the course which is about the history of TouchDesigner Houdini. That history go back to the 80s. And since then, I'm quite sure in what I'm telling now, no one other program was developed so geniusly, most efficient way. Fairly to say, Houdini is more straightforward. So what is coolest in TouchDesigner, that's ported to the GPU so much as possible. But Houdini, TouchDesigner, I mean, Houdini is developed the idea of proceduralism until the most possible level. And if you dive into history, not only 3D programs, but let's say something like, I don't know, compositing. It was the Shake video compositing. It was old school discrete logic programs, Fusion, any complex video compositing software out of Adobe After Effects is node-based. I don't think compositing. It's like if you just take a look to way of do compositing, it was always done with nodes. And now, if we turn our head from the past to the future, also, let's say, most of things which are found in between low-level coding and using ready-made tools are typically node-based. For example, if we just will speak about the AI stuff, yeah? So, like, what we have now, most advanced tool for doing AI is ComfyUI. It's node-based. So basically, my most important target in that course, not only to teach you bunch of techniques you can use in your work, but most important topic is to get the idea of proceduralism, get the idea of node-based workflow, and get the idea how to structure your brain to convert your creative non-verbal ideas to ready results, and how to solve the problems. The most problematic point if you learn stuff from YouTube tutorials, that people who teach explain you how to make the order of commands you need to print on the user interface on some program. They don't explain the logic behind. So that's my target, to make you understand the logic behind. Regarding the Mac versus Windows, I would vote for Windows for sure, but Mac is also not a big deal. It depends. So Mac is always fucked up with 3D drivers. Since I have Mac, it was always problematic there. And there are some limitations. So for example, you will not really able to work with geometry shaders on Mac, for example, or with Kinect, because it's Windows Kinect or Microsoft Kinect. But basically that's coming a bit outside of the most part of the course. So basic ideas which are topics of the course will work on both platforms. Doesn't matter. Houdini is ported to Mac very long time ago. TouchDesigner ported not so far, but currently is working also quite stable. I have TouchDesigner and Houdini on both Mac and Windows, and I prefer to work on Windows. Logically, for Houdini, maybe most better platform to use is Linux, but I'm not so nerd myself to work with Linux, so it's up to you. Anyway, what is cool that side effects give with that is not really documented on their website, but if you just go and want to buy a license of Houdini, you will actually get 2 licenses, because they suppose you might have multi-platform PC or machine which has, for example, Linux and Windows, and they offer you 2 keys to be able to have Houdini on both platforms. But basically I can install it on 2 different machines with just kind of, I tell to them I work myself on it. So basically, starting from the time I was starting with computer graphics, and Houdini license was cost around 30,000 euro bucks, it was no euro yet, and 399 bucks for even for indie commercial license, it's just gift. Just a small thing, I recently landed to some Python-based, Node-based tool for creating pipelines. I'm just learning it right now. It also looks like a very good tool. So that's idea is quite straightforward. You can use the node-based approach everywhere. Any other questions? I want also to say that Hou2Touch is kind of more or less like living organism. So we don't update course completely to every new group, but something will be updated because we have a new versions of software and something changed or something new came. So I will try to update and additionally record some new lessons which will cover this topic. But sometimes you might find in the program something which is not correspond to the modern version of, let's say, Houdini. For example, a lot of old students were struggling with old mountain mode operator, which is actually was just another word for the noise. So basically, if I just create a grid and make it like a bit more detailed, I can create a mountain, and that mountain which we have in new Houdini looks a bit different in parameters, which is in recorded lesson. Yeah, but basically, if you just enable your brain and understand that is both noise, you can come clear that it's a bit different, but still just wrap around the noise. So basically it's called mountain, but basically node type is attribute noise. So like most important to enable your brain. What is also very funny, I started to use a bit of ChatGPT recently, and it's kind of powerful really. So I was creating some GLSL code which was quite working. So basically it looks like a time, so you can simplify your learning, and I intensively thinking on extending my educational workflow by AI as well. So I would be happy if you write into our student chat in Telegram. 1 second. Okay, so we have that. So after earlier we had additional chat room for every group. On the end we realized that make no sense, because most important that the chat group is alive, and more people in one chat better, because people coming from different level of knowledge can help each other, sometimes much faster than, for example, I can answer some question or our curators can answer some questions. So we decided to move all groups into one chat room, and that will be like most important heart of education on the end, because it will be a place where you can find the answer for a question, place where you can present your homework, place where you can find possible collaboration with some other people from the course. Answering to the last question, the program, it's Houdini. What program before Houdini? That was the Python engine for creating pipelines. So theoretically, if you have Houdini, you don't need that, because in Houdini we have PDG, or top operators, where you can really create procedural pipelines. But yeah, I just learning something new always, and I find this as an interesting tool. So, and basically, just a small advice for everyone who came to the group: please be active. Also, be ready that doesn't matter if you decide to do all the lessons from the course or just a part of the lesson. That's quite a long distance, and it's quite complex to go through that long time and keep your motivation on the high level. That's the most problematic point of learning online. So that's only up to you. We cannot make you motivated all the time. So we try to support that process, but we cannot do it completely from our side. So basically, you will get from that course so much you want, and so much how motivated you are. So be active. That's the most important. Also about me, I'm not ideal. I'm a bit chaotic person, so I try to keep my best, or to do my best to be on time, but that doesn't work always. Also, sometimes I'm very busy myself as an artist, so sometimes I will not react on the time. It happens that I cancel some stream, so I want to be fair. But on the other hand, I spent literally to that moment 4 years of my life trying to make the best educational program on the market, and based on 20 years of my teaching and professional experience before. And where I'm quite sure we have no competition in that point, because what we see from concurrence in education, maybe for Houdini there are a lot of schools and I cannot say anything about that, but for TouchDesigner I'm completely sure that our approach is the best one. And I spent a lot of years to be so sure in myself, because I'm kind of the person who is fucking my brain and self-reflexing a lot. So please be active, and I typically try to answer everything and make so much attention to the people I physically can. Oh, Kinect question. So I would say about the Kinect diet. So now we have the alternative camera, which is based on the same engine but much better. I think it's called Orbolt. Yeah, or Beck. Sorry. That's the camera which came instead of Kinect, but it's super expensive, but it's much more qualitative. There is also very cool camera which is new. I even have it here somewhere, but that's the device, and that thing is actually has own AI here, AI CPU, AI processor, so it can not only be used in real time, but you can even process the recorded data and movies on external processing unit based on this camera. But it's completely based on Python library and AI, so it's needs to don't have a fear about the programming with UI. But basically, in the modern times, I think we are quite close to the moment that everything we were expecting from Kinect can be done completely on the monocular webcam using something like MediaPipe. So I started to use MediaPipe for my own works, and it's even with CPU processing, it's faster than Kinect for making the pose estimation. So I don't think there is any sense to use Kinect anymore. Camera what I had in my hand, I will show you now. It's what we have here. It's OAK-D. They have a bunch of different versions. OAK-D camera. So that's the camera what I had. It's not my own yet. I got it from Markus Heckman, who lives here on the same district, and they have a bunch of different other cameras for different applications and for different price as well. Orbex, yeah, I suppose it's more lightweight, it's smaller, and has better quality. It has better integration between several devices, which make so basically what was cool in Kinect Azure, what I still also have here, that is a Kinect Azure, that's that camera can speak to other cameras in network, which is not really well integrated in TouchDesigner. But if you can program on C#, you can make it. So Orbolt made this quality of a next level, but I never touched it myself yet. I can try to show something. So, for example, that's a movie I was creating for the event we were doing last week in Berlin, and that's how the media pipe basically works. I hope it will start. Okay, seems that it doesn't really work right now. What is the problem? Fuck, I installed TensorFlow and it stopped to work right now. Okay, I will show the movie, what I created with it. So for my personal taste and experience, it almost works better than Kinect Skeleton. Only problem, it doesn't return the depth position of Skeleton. But for that we also have current new solutions. For that quality of movie we have. So basically what is really cool in Kinect, that it can work in complete darkness. What logically will not be the case for the standard webcam. But webcam for $60 instead of Kinect for $5,000, producing almost the same result is impressive. And that is using the free default model, and remind is CPU version. So it's really work on 60 frames per second. So basically, in order you understand, that is just a movie which is processed by my TouchDesigner project, and I don't made any post-processing. So all text animation, all skeleton rendering, everything is just rendered in one pass in TouchDesigner. That is a project. Just a problem that after I installed something in Python, that's not loading the model, but it can be easily checked. Okay, some more questions. So let's say for everyone who are in already got the complete ticket or see Hou2Touch course in their system on our website, I will show. So you can go to the website, click on sign in, and here you will see smaller menu than me, but in the training you will see the trainings available for you, and here you will see the Hou2Touch course, and you will see the first free lessons right now. For some of you who made this prepayment, I think you got the mails from Maxim, from our administrator and my friend, and in any case you can always come to us and ask some question how to manage the payment, etc. For the licenses, we have an agreement with SideFX, so you can ask Maxim about the instruction what you need to make to get the educational license for $75. I would really offer you to make that investment, because free version of Houdini is really strong limited, so you cannot do something meaningful with that. Because even later, if you upgrade your Houdini license, you will need to convert all files created in free Houdini, which is not so cool. It's still playing with the sound, sorry. I disabled my sound so I don't hear. So I will repeat. Yeah, Maxim sent the instruction how to get the educational license for Houdini. For TouchDesigner, basically you can work with free TouchDesigner version, but in case you want to, and currently we have a conversation with derivative about our state regarding the licenses. So because before we had an agreement about the educational licenses, and now we're discussing how it will work from the moment. So I cannot say today what is the current state, but I hope relatively soon it will be cleared. So for some of new students, Isabel offered some discount for commercial version, which I think is a good deal. But yeah, I will update you very soon. So you can easily ask what you expect from the course. You can easily tell something about yourself to like understand who you are. Basically, I would even ask everyone who joined the Telegram group to write there some small presentation about yourself, to share some links. We also will support and promote the student work, so it's win-win strategy for both of us, because we want to increase our students and we try to promote the student works. Some of our students teaching already, so it's like always cool. And basically my big dream, I don't know how much time it will be spent until we reach it, and how the political situation on the planet will develop, because it's like can affect. That's kind of ambitious ideas, but hopefully what I really want to make, I want to make not a school, I want to make kind of producing center for the media artist. So I really make a point not on the professionals but on the artists, because to be a successful artist make you free from working on someone. So that's how I live, and I also want to promote more art than professionals. However, everything what I teach in the course can be also related just to commercial work. So I think I'm more or less told about everything I wanted. So I still really open for the questions, ideas. So I already see that Philip starts to write something. That's cool. So if you don't have so much more questions so far, we can, I think, slowly finish for today. And I'm really happy to see you here. And let's make some cool art. It's Telegram. So we do chat on Telegram, and I show why. First, Telegram is, so in our group we have subgroups, which is quite cool to have everything structured. Then we can pin some important topics to the chat, so you can always rewind and find important topics. And I tried to make it on Discord. On the end, I went off this idea because for me Discord just producing too much of sounds, and I never get the notification about something important. In Telegram, you can easily go to the group and you can mute the group if you don't want to hear and see notification, but you still will see the number of missing messages. You can also make the tabs here on the side, and for example, I have like some professional channels locked to this channel, to this tab, so it's quite manageable. Okay, then welcome to workshop. I will convert the recording and upload it and post it to the Telegram. And if you have some questions, always welcome to ask. Just I will remind how you can find me on Telegram. It's my old nickname, which means procedural. So if you have some questions, always welcome to ask. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your trust, and wish you great success in your art, business, life, and creativity. By the way, my picture in GoToMeeting is created by capturing point cloud data from Kinect and rendering some generative graphics on top in Houdini, which is also covered in the course.